Okay, so let's start with the basics of what we're going to need. And today I'm going to be using Sculpey Premo clay. Now you can use Premo or Cernit, Fimo, they're all good. I would not use Sculpey 3 for this project because Sculpey 3 can be quite brittle, and what you want is something that is going to give you a nice solid finish to your project. We will also be needing some liquid clay, and I'm going to be using this clear liquid polyclay, which is Kato clay. You can also use Sculpey. You can also use Fimo liquid clay. Any liquid clay will work as long as it's white or see-through or translucent. I wouldn't use black liquid clay because the glow-in-the-dark clay will need to absorb as much sun as possible to charge, so I don't want to put anything dark in that those colors that would make the sun not be able to shine. So not black, but anything that's white or translucent will do just fine, and any liquid clay that you have will work. So these are the colors that we're going to be using today. So you're going to want a little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange, a little bit of magenta, a little bit of purple, and if you don't have these colors in these exact colors, do not worry. A little bit of blue and a little bit of green. Now I made this green by adding some white to it, so I really like a light minty green, and so this is my own creation here. I know you see all these colors and you wonder, can I even find all those colors? Well, we're not going to be even using, you don't have to use so much, okay? You're just going to be using basically little slivers. If you look at a pack of clay, this is just a little sliver of that pack. So you're not going to need much of that color. I'm also going to be using this Premo Glow clay. You can also use Sculpey and mix this in, Sculpey 3 if you can find that, and mix it in, or you can use, I think Cernit has a glow clay. This stuff is absolutely wonderful. Let me show you, demo for you. Let me put this in the dark so you guys can see. So this clay right here, it glows in the dark wonderfully. So I'm going to be using half a package of that. So out of 2 ounces, I'm going to be using 1 ounce of that. And I'm also going to be using pearl white. You can use regular white if you wish. The reason I'm using pearl white along with the glow clay and these colors is I really want this to shine against the sun, because the Suncatcher with the metallics in this clay mixed with all the other clays, it's going to be beautiful. So out of a package, I'm only using 1 1/4, one and a half of another bar here. So not even a whole half package of pearl white. I also wanted to let you know, if you cannot find any glow clay, do not worry. Use the colors you have. If you only have 3 colors, use those 3. If you have 4 colors, use those 4. It's however many colors you would like to use in this. I'm using a rainbow array today because specifically that's what I love. So use what you have, and it's going to turn out great, guys. I will also be using a tissue blade. I will be using my trusty Atlas 150 pasta machine, where my setting at 0 is the largest and 9 is the thinnest, but we will not even be going close to 9. You can also use a roller. It takes quite a bit longer to do that, but it's going to be okay if you just have a roller to blend your clays together. That's not a problem. The next tool that we're going to be using is this adorable Panda silk screen and cutter set. Now I designed these, and Rhonda over at FTH Supplies has graciously put together a set that you guys can purchase all this together. Of course, you won't be getting 2 silk screens. You'll only be getting 1 silk screen with the 2 images. I just cut mine in half because I prefer it like that. You can see this. This is actually an umbrella cutter. Now this comes in a set of 2, and I have another tutorial coming out for this little one. For something totally different, but this is the one I'm going to be using today, and this is a 3-inch umbrella cutter. And I'm also going to be using 2 square cutters. Now, this is, I believe, the 2-inch cutter, and then you can decide which smaller square you would like to use. Also, you can use circle cutters, you can use heart cutters, you can use oval cutters, triangle cutters, whatever cutter you want, you can use that instead. So you don't have to use a square cutter. It's only if you want to use exactly how I'm going to do it in this tutorial, but you can see how after everything's finished, how you're going to decide on what you want to use besides this. So all together, let me show you. These are the cutters that I will be using today. I will be using these 2 silk screens. You will need black paint and a card to scrape your screen. And to bake on, you're going to need a tile. You can work on tile and bake on tile. Usually what I do is I work on my large tile so that I can put that directly into the oven. But you can also use, if you have a smaller oven, you can use these small tiles. These are tiles that you pick up in the tile section at Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm not sure if Walmart has them, but you can definitely find these at any Home Depot or Lowe's. Just go in the tile area. I'm also going to be using this needle tool. This is a knitting needle tool. It's the smallest. I just use this to smooth surfaces. And since we're going to be painting or silk screening today, you're going to need something that actually covers your clay so that your silk screen veneer doesn't scratch off. I recommend this From the Heart Polymer Clay Supplies. It's an easy brush-on finish, and this cures under a UV light. Now, if you don't have a UV light, you can use this. And this is Jaqouard Pearl Ex Varnish. This is really awesome. And this varnish, you can put it on in very, very thin coats and let it dry in between. And you can apply anywhere from 2 to 4 coats to seal in your silk screen. You will also need something to bake your umbrella on, something round. Now, you can use a light bulb. This one has writing on it, so I'm not going to use this because that writing would actually transfer to the inside of my clay. You can use a Christmas bulb, and that's actually what I'm going to be using today, is this Christmas bulb here. And what I do is I pull out this little doohickey here so that I can see this, and you're going to want to do this carefully. And you can use any glass Christmas bulb, and I take a piece of raw unbaked clay, and it's just a piece of junk that I'm never going to use, and I just worked my bulb onto this, and this is what I'm going to bake my umbrella on. So I just put this to the side and I place my umbrella over the top of it, and I have a perfectly round shape. Now you can use other things in your house. If you have a bowl that's perfectly round, you can bake in there. If you have like I said, a light bulb, you can do that as well. You can stick this into some raw clay and bake it. If you have silicone bowls, mine are basically colored because I use these for coloring resin and stuff, but you can use these bowls as well because they're round on the inside, so you can use those as well. So I'm going to put this off to the side for now. The next thing you're going to need is stainless steel 45mm wire, beading wire, and you will need 12 inches of this wire, and that's it. You'll need some bindings, which are, you're going to need a couple of crimping beads and some 6mm jump rings. Need some figure 8 connectors. If you do not have these figure 8 connectors, you can also use an eyelet head pin and make your own little connectors. You will also need a head pin and an eyelet, just one of each. Now this next thing is totally optional, totally up to you. these are the beads that I'm going to be stringing on my 12-inch wire. I'm going to be using these pearl white glass beads and these pearl purple. I will be using black, and I'll be using these Aurora Borealis tube beads. Now these right here, these are other beads that are optional that you can use as well. These are tube beads as well. They're pink and there's blue. I'm going to be using these Aurora Borealis, I don't know, I call them like water beads because they look like water droplets. But you can also use these beads right here. Right now, Michaels has their beads on 50% off, so I went down and got a whole bunch. So you don't need to have crystals. If you don't have crystals, it's okay. You can actually make beads out of what we're already going to be making. So if you don't have any beads, don't worry, you can make some yourself. But these are the beads that I will be using. This right here is going to be the top of my umbrella. These I can use in the string on the way down, or I could have used these on top of my umbrella. So these are all just optional beads for later. And then of course, this is also optional. If you have a heart bead that has the center of the hole drilled from the top to the bottom, which I prefer. So these are the beads I'm going to be using. But again, there's all kinds of beads that you can use. I will also be using some blue crystal beads. You can also get one of these, which is a swivel hanger. And this is perfect if you're going to be doing this as a sun catcher. You want it to be able to spin in the wind, and that's where these swivel connectors are really awesome, and you can find these online as well. If you don't have a swivel connector, don't worry about it. Now that we know all the tools we're going to use, let's begin making our sun catcher. First, you'll want to decide what color you want your panda to be. I want my panda to be pink on one side and purple on the other. Light pink and light purple to be exact. I will cut a piece off that's a little over 1 by 2 inches off this white clay right here. And this is at a thickness of 0 on my pasta machine. Again, this is only going to be about 1 to maybe 2 inches in thickness. It's the same as the other cuts above here that are in color. I'm going to cut this in half and put this to the side here. And I'm just going to tear off probably about a finger's worth of pink here or magenta and stick that over here on the pearl. And now I'm going to take my purple, and I probably don't want to use quite as much pink or purple as I used on the pink, so I'm going to do a little bit less purple. And stick that over here. Now I'm going to take my glow clay, and I'm just going to take a slice off, probably about this much right here. It's probably about a half of this block. You can add more glow if you want. You can add as much glow clay as you want to this entire thing. I'm going to cut that in half and then stack those. Now I'm going to take both of these separately, and I'm going to do one at a time and mix these thoroughly on my pasta machine. Okay, now I've put this through my pasta machine probably about 15-20 times, and I thoroughly mixed it, and this is the sheet I have. Now this is a thickness of 4. Now I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Now I have my pink and my purple, and I'm going to put those off to the side. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to thoroughly mix this up. Okay, now that I've mixed this up, I'm going to put it to the side here, and I'm going to take, I can add this little piece back in later, so it doesn't need to be perfect. This is 5 inches by about 3 inches, just so you know. And the reason this size is perfect is because my little pandas are going to fit perfectly on both of those. So I'll leave those to the side. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to start mixing how much I want here. Now, I really like this green. And what you really could do if you wanted all of this color in here at the same time, it would be really bright. And what I want is I don't want quite so bright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pearl, put it through my pasta machine. This is my pearl, and this is the thickest setting on my pasta machine. And I'm just going to take a cut of pearl, and I'm going to lay this in here, probably like that. And now I'm going to take I want this green to be really bright, and this blue I'm just going to lay these slightly over the top of each other. And this purple is so bright, I'm just going to use a piece of this. And like I said, you can add more in, so keep your little bits and scraps. I want all of that pink. I want a little bit of that orange, and then all of that yellow. And this is all going to mix together. Now, don't worry about this extra. It's going to blend as you put it through the pasta machine. And so I don't get bubbles, I'm not going to fold it this way. I'm going to fold it this way and put it through my pasta machine just like this. And I'm going to put it through my pasta machine just like this. So I'm cranking my arm and feeding it through, and it's going to go through this way. I'm not putting it through this way, I'm putting it through this way. I've run it through the pasta machine 3 times now, and this is what it looks like. So now I'm going to continue folding it, making sure I don't do any bubbles, and putting it through my pasta machine. Okay, this is where I'm at now. Okay, this is what I have so far, and I really like the color of the green. The blue is a little bit too dark for me, so what I'm going to do, to lighten all these up right here, I'm just going to put a pinch of that, and then to lighten up this right here, I'm going to put white, a little bit of white here to lighten these up. I already like that one right there. Okay, so now I'm at this point. It hasn't quite lightened up all the way, but what I'm going to start doing now, move my little bits and pieces, so I'm going to fold this over just like this. And I want to line the sides up to make sure they're even. Get my bubbles out. And you see how it's wavy right here? What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start pushing the clay in. So, and I'm going to only do it where there's bumps and spots. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to push out on the edge, push this over, and it's going to raise the clay up a bit, but that's okay. I'm just going to smush it down with my finger, push on the sides, and smush it down. Now when this goes through the pasta machine, this is actually going to stay even with this just about. Now I need to do the orange. For the orange, what I do is I make a slight rainbow where the orange is, you know, a little shape of a rainbow. I stick the clay to this side on the tile, and I make a rainbow right there. Right there. See their little bump right there? And then I stick it on this side. So it's stuck on both sides to the tile. And then I just work this upward. And then I do that. I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to, just like a snake, I'm going to scooch this over and make another rainbow. Just like this with my, you can use your finger if you want, and it doesn't have to go all the way down. Just like that. The clay is stuck both sides of the tile. Now I'm going to start from the bottom, and I'm just going to push upwards slightly with my finger, not hard, just a little bit. Now I'm going to start doing that same thing all across here. Going to continue to do the yellow, work it upwards. Now I'm going to do the purple and the blue. And if you make too much of a rainbow, it'll bunch up, you know, you start to see little bubbles. Just pick it up and redo it. And now for the green side, you just gotta hold down your color right here and just kind of push it in a little bit with your finger. Kind of like what you did here, you smushed it over. You want to keep this, you want to keep your corners even. Okay, now that I have this smushed together a little more, I'm going to put it through my pasta machine just like this again, and this is what I get. Now I need to scooch it in right here, so I'm going to make a little, push it upward. Oh, too much. Scooch it down, and now see, I'm just pushing it upward. Same thing on this side with the green and the blue. I could smush this in some more, but I want to keep that green where it's at. So I noticed that this green is just not catching up very well with the blue. So I'm going to take a piece of scrap that I had, and I'm going to put it right here. And that'll join that up. This yellow I want to continue to smush up because I want this yellow to blend into this really good. So now I'm going to put it in my pasta machine again. And I have a piece of Sculpey Premo white clay. This is just pure white clay. There's no pearl to it. And I'm going to add that little bit of whiteness to that strip right there, just by adding a little touch. Now, when you're folding your clay, make sure that you don't let this happen right here. Line your edges up, and then scoot the clay over whatever you need to do, or push it up. If it's starting to curve, push it up in the direction you want it to go in. And since I'm still struggling with this green, I'm going to add one more pinch of green right here. I'm going to run this through the pasta machine until this is blended fully now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reducing it just like I showed you. I'm going to be pushing this in and pushing this side in, and I want this to go in. And you can also wiggle it as you're pushing in. So when you're pushing in, wiggle it a little bit, and you'll do that on both sides, because if you do it just one side, you're going to make your clay uneven. It'll be wobbly. So I'm just going to work this in because I want this to get smaller. And what I need this to be is I need this to be, I need it to be 3 inches, just over 3 inches in width. A really good tip when you are trying to reduce your cane and you want it to stay a certain size, an easy way to help you when you are doing your shrinking your cane, or not shrinking your cane, shrinking your sheet of clay, is using a pack of clay to the side, so that when you feed it through your pasta machine, this clay will keep it from spreading outward. And this measures just over 3 inches. So this is the length that I need. So it's not up like this, it's sideways. And that will give you exactly the width that you would need for this. So I'm going to wiggle this and shrink it down until I can get it here. Okay, so now that I can fit this, even if the top piece is wide, Not too wide, but even if it's a little bit wider, that is okay. This right here is going to make it so that it shrinks down. So I'm going to show you this right here. See? And now it's perfectly the size that I need. Every time that I fold it up, I know it's exactly the length that I want this to be. So now I'm going to put this through my pasta machine to make sure everything's fully blended, which is probably about 15 more times. Okay, so now I have this nice, smooth, beautiful piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this and thin this out to a thickness of 4 on my pasta machine. Alright, so this is what I have right here, this beautiful, beautiful sheet. And for some reason my pasta machine is being a diva right now, and it left some ripples in my clay, but that is quite alright. What I'll do is I'll just take a clean sheet of copy paper and lay it over the top and just burnish it. And burnish it simply means I'm going to take my fingers and go in a circular motion lightly over my clay, firm but lightly, until I don't feel that anymore. You can also take your roller and burnish. And I'm just doing this lightly because I don't want the clay to spread out. This is again a thickness of 4 on my pasta machine. Alright. And it looks like there's ripples, but you actually cannot feel the ripples. So that kind of gives it a cool effect for me. Is we're going to get our silk screen. And you're going to have 1. I have 2. I cut them out so that I could have one in one color and one in another color. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this right over the top of this and just burnish this lightly. Just lightly, just so that it sticks down onto the clay. And then I'm going to come over here, put my my silk screen over the top, and now I'm going to take my black paint, just lay a little blob right here, and this is where you're going to need some kind of, you could use a business card. I'm using an old Walmart gift card that we had, and I'm going to just drag the paint and get a little bit on my card, just on the one side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it, the silk screen's here, I'm going to drag it along here just like that at an angle towards me. And then make sure that it's filling in all of the screen. And then drag the additional paint off, and then pick up a little bit more paint and do the same on the other side. Take the additional off, just wipe it off and wipe away the paint. Now, as soon as you take these silk screens off, make sure you put them into water. Otherwise, the paint will dry in the silk screen. And I'm not worried about the paint being on the edge like that, but if you are, you can just take a wet towel or baby wipe and just wipe it while the paint is wet. And then if there's still a little bit of paint in here, mixing this clay over again will ensure that the paint absorbs into the clay and you won't see that color anymore. So now what I'm going to do is, while this is drying, I'm going to go over to this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out my umbrella shape, and you pick out how much of the color you want where. I choose more green than yellow, so I'm moving this slightly over. And this is a 3-inch umbrella cutter. So you can see that pack of clay just let a little bit more over, but that's okay because this is all white. I don't really want that. I did want a little bit of the yellow. So now I'm going to press this into the clay, and I push on every edge. And then what I do is I grab it from the sides and I give it a little bit of a wiggle, and this lets me know. And I'm pushing down as I wiggle, pushing down, because that way I can feel the tile underneath and that it grabbed it, and that means that it's a nice clean cut. I'm going to cut this off. And fold this. Just going to cut that off. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to fold this in half, exactly on its lines on each side. Make sure each side is lined up. Make sure all my air bubbles are gone. And I'm going to take this scrap, I'm going to put it exactly where it would line up on here, so you can see this lines up perfectly. And I'm going to put this over here to the side and line these up. It does not have to be perfect. I'm just lining this up. And I'm going to put this through my pasta machine a couple of times just to get it smoothed out again. Okay, so now this is a thickness of 5 on my pasta machine. And again, the lovely ripples you can see. I'm going to burnish those out. All right. Now, if you've decided whether you're going to use circles, hearts, stars, whatever you want to use, you can use. Now I'm going to be using a square, 2 squares to be exact, a large square and a smaller square. I believe this is a 2-inch square, and I believe this is just over 1 inch. And I just like the sizing on this. You can use whatever heart or whatever piece that you want. Now, I like to put this at an angle, not a straight line. So I'm going to cut, see, I want more green. And then I'm going to cut 2 of those. Now you're going to have some of this left over, so feel free if you want to make other shapes or whatever beads to go on your Suncatcher, you would do it the same exact way. You just need 2 sides. And be very careful not to smush your squares. You want to keep your shape that you cut. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on the table on my tile. I'm going to put this on my tile, and I'm going to make sure that it's straight. Because moving it around sometimes does tend to move the clay around. Okay, so now that I have this here, now I'm going to take my smaller cutter And I'm going to go directly over the center of this, figure out exactly what side I want this to be on. Okay, that looks good right there. Now I'm going to cut this directly on here. Now it's on paper, so when you're doing this, if you put this on the paper, your clay could slide around, so make sure that you tap your clay down a little bit onto the paper very lightly before you do this so it doesn't slide. And I'm going to give that gentle little wiggle. Make sure that it's separated, and see how my clay is sliding around? That tells me that I've cut clean through, that there's no clay left underneath that blade. And I'm going to lift this out of here very gently because I don't want to. And now I have my two pieces. I'm going to put this on. Now I'm not going to mess with the sides right now. You can see that there's a little bit of stuff that on the inside that I'm going to have to clean up, but I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to leave this around on the tile because I don't want to mess it up. I'm going to set the tile to the side, and now I'm going to start cutting my pandas out. Cute little panda. He's so cute. Now I'm going to do the pink one. And now that we have our pandas, I'm going to go ahead and take one of our pandas off the sheet here and carefully bring him over to my tile and set him over here and make sure he's completely flat. And these pieces right here are going to stay here until everything's cooked. So now what we're going to work on is our umbrella. Like I said, you can use a light bulb or whatever. I'm going to be using this Christmas ornament. And figure out which side that you like the best. And now I'm going to place this on my bulb here as in the middle as I possibly can. And I'm just gently pulling the clay down. I'm not doing anything other than making sure that the clay adheres to the glass. Just making sure all the corners are down. And there we go. I have my perfect little umbrella, little top. Now what I'm going to do is you got to choose which color do you want to be the accent of your umbrella. Do you want it to be pink? Do you want it to be purple? Do you want it to be blue? Personally, I really like this really pale purple, and it kind of matches one of our pandas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my little pink panda off here. I'm going to put her off to the side. What you're going to do is you're going to make yourself a noodle. Okay, so what you do is you want to cut your noodles 2 inches. So once you have 8 pieces, you put them on your umbrella starting where the little tip is, and you feed it up, but don't push anything down. Then you go to the other side, the exact opposite, do the same thing on the other side of the umbrella. Just leave these, don't push them down. So this is what it should look like. Okay, so what I've done here is the first two I overlapped. Those were the first two underneath, and I just joined them together right at the bottom. Now that I have the other pieces, I have brought the other pieces to a tip, just like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, ever so carefully, just pet these down. Just take your finger and slide it softly against the clay to make sure that your piece, your clay, your purple lines are joined. And also see where they're at and make sure that they're straight. If they're not straight, don't fret. It's still going to look good, and I will show you. Alright, so now that I've done that to all of the lines, and I have this tip still, what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist this. I'm just push down and twist, push down and twist gently, very, very gently. And this is what it should look like. Now, if you don't like the way that looks, you can drag your finger gently in different directions or twist your fingertip on there, and that will give a little bit different of a look, more smooth. See? And you want that to be flat right there. So this is what it looks like on the top. Everything goes in the spokes. Now what you're going to do, set that piece in back in your clay that's holding it, and you're going to take a needle tool, or you can take a toothpick, and what you're going to do is you're going to put a hole directly in the middle of that, and you're going to push down until you feel the glass, and then wiggle and twist. Wiggle slightly, not hard, and twist against, very gently against the glass. This is a toothpick, so it's wood, so it's not going to hurt the glass or scratch it. And now I have my hole in here. Now that I've done that, so we have our panda, one side of each square, and now I'm going to take my umbrella and set all of this on my tile. I have a piece of tin foil that I make sure it's a ball in one spot to put over that. I don't want my tin foil to touch my bulb because I don't want my bulb to be shiny, or my umbrella. So I'm making sure that I'm just tenting this over the top, and I'm going to cook this at 275 for 45 minutes. Okay, now that everything's cooled and out of the oven, now that I can touch everything, now we're going to put our pieces together. So I'm going to put these over here. These are all cooked right here, and my bulb is over here just waiting for me to work with it. So what you're going to do is, now you're going to need these tools. You're going to need your liquid clay, your figure-8s connectors, unless you decided to create some out of an eyelet, which really all you need to do is cut a piece here off and then make some make a squiggly line. That way it can embed in your clay and not get pulled out. So, and then you can also make your own figure eights as well, like this. But I just prefer, I love these. I have a lot of these on hand, so I'm always using these. Just the figure eight and just the liquid clay for now. And I'll put my umbrella off to the side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our little panda, we're going to flip him over, and we're going to lay a little bit of liquid clay down. And spread that around with my finger. And now I'm going to take my unbaked bear and I'm going to flip her over. I'm going to take a figure eight. I'm going to add some clay right into the liquid clay right into that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that right here. Right where her hand would be. And then I'm going to take a piece, then I'm going to take this toothpick and just push that down into the clay. Now I'm going to take my panda off the clay, off the tile, and I'm going to put her right over the top of my purple panda. And I'm going to line them up as best I can and join them together so that the purple isn't sticking out on one side and the pink isn't sticking out on this side. So you can see how the legs are kind of poking out here. I just push that in. And just pushing it in all the way around so that it matches up with my purple panda. And get it a little tricky around that little connector. So you just take your toothpick and just look around and make sure everything's joined up the way you want it to be. Now that I have this in place, I need to figure out where I want to put an additional figure eight connector. And the reason I didn't do that while she was here is because I wanted to figure out exactly where I wanted to place this. And so I want to place this right here at her feet. So I'm going to take my X-Acto blade and I'm going to slide this in and make myself a little space in there. Take my figure eight connector. I'm going to add clay again to the middle of it here. And now I'm going to take this and place it in that little cubby that I made. And now I'm just going to gently pat this down. And now that that's sealed, you can see there might be a little bit of clay that pops out, liquid clay. You can either wipe that away or leave it. It's your choice. I'm going to wipe it away and make sure my figure eight is all the way in there and that this is patted down. Now I'm going to put this on my tile, back on there, and now I'm going to come to this piece. So now I need my square cutter. I'm going to place this over the top and line up my colors. And I just want the square to generally be the same, cut in the same place. And so I just made a little indent so I know where that's at on the top piece. Now carefully Now, figure out which side I want to lay this on. I'm going to lay my liquid clay all the way around this. And now I'm going to take this slice, separate these two. I'm going to flip this over. And you have to figure out how you want this to hang. Do you want it to hang this way? Do you want it to hang this way? Do you want it to be square? I'm going to hang mine, I think I'm going to hang mine with the yellow to the top and the green at the bottom. And this is where I'm going to take 3 figure-8 connectors. And I'm going to put one here, and I want this to really be kind of tucked up. This piece to be kind of tucked up because you don't want this piece coming out on either side anywhere. So I push it just past there, and then I'm going to use the back of my X-Acto blade, and I'm going to push that into the clay. Now I'm going to do that again at the top. And I'm going to push that down. And now I'm going to add one more to my green area over here. And now I'm going to push down with my back of my razor blade. It's flat. This is flat, so that helps push it in. Okay, so now that I pushed this fully in and I have my 3 figure-8 connectors in, now I'm going to add a touch of liquid clay just to the inside connector, just to secure it a little bit more. Now you're going to carefully lift this up, careful not to distort your square. You're going to lift this up and you're going to place it over the other piece. And this is where you're going to carefully join the seams and make sure that both squares are covered and that one isn't covering the other. And sometimes you'll see this right here. Just go to the other side and tuck it in. And here, right here, I just go to this side and I'll tuck it in. There's a little unevenness in the colors. That's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fingertip and I'm going to pull the clay, the soft clay that isn't baked, and I'm just going to pull it with my finger around the edge. And I'm doing this ever so gently. I'm not doing this. There's a hair here that I got to get out. And just go around all the sides and just gently pull your clay down the side of the cooked clay. And now we do our final piece that we need to bake one more time, and that's this piece right here. This is the front and this is the back. Now for this one, I see, remember the edging that I was telling you about? Sometimes you'll have these little thin pieces right here. you can just take a razor blade and just shave those right off. You can sand them off as well. I prefer just taking a razor blade and just stripping that little corners down or the edges down. Now for this I didn't have to do that because I just pulled the clay around it, but I just wanted to clean that up a little bit before I add this other piece. And this is where you're going to use your final figure 8 pieces. Alright, so this is where, this is the cooked piece, and this is the side I want to adhere it to. So I'm going to put my clay on this side. And again, I'm going from yellow to green, so I'm going to have the orange part going upwards. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to take my figure 8 and put one in the top. Now if you want this to be the bottom bead, don't add another figure 8. But if you want to hang a crystal from this or another bead from this, then you'll go ahead and add another. So I'm going to take the back of my X-Acto blade, push this in, embed it into the clay on both sides. And I had a little bit of distortion there when I pushed it down too hard, so I'm going to take my razor blade and just tuck that side in. And now I'm going to add a touch of clay, just a little bead. And now I'm going to separate this from my table very carefully, not to distort it. And now I'm going to place this right over the top of the other side of the other one. I'm going to drag the clay down the edge. Now you're going to take these, and both of them are uncooked on this side. Now you're going to take both these beads, including your panda, and you're going to cook the uncooked sides. And I'm going to cook these. I'm going to cook these for 45 more minutes on 275. Okay, so this part is the part where you decide on whether you want to make beads or whether you want to use beads that you purchased from the store. Either way, you're going to want to use about 12 inches, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depends on how high you want your Suncatcher to hang. And I found that a little over 12 inches just gives me enough space so that I can hold on to the wire and that I don't have any issues. So the first thing that I'm going to do, whether you make your own beads or you decide to use beads that you've purchased, you're going to want to have a crimping bead. And again, this is 45 millimeter jewelry wire. This stuff is stainless steel. This stuff is really strong. And you can buy this relatively cheaply at Michael's or, not Michael's, but Walmart. You can find this at Walmart, actually, and it's pretty good stuff. You can find it at Michael's as well, Amazon. You can find this stuff pretty much everywhere, but it's jewelry wire specifically that I'm using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 crimping beads. And I have this nifty little crimping tool that you don't need, but you if you make necklaces or you bead a lot, you probably already have this. And if you don't need it. You can just use a regular pair of pliers, little jewelry pliers. But I'm going to use my nifty little crimping bead tool just because I spent a pretty penny on it, and I will use the darn thing. So I'm getting a couple of my crimping beads out and ready. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of those crimping beads on. Actually, no, that one's got a little jagged edge. Some of these crimping beads for this, depending on which crimping beads you like to use, they can, some of them have like a little sharp edges on them that haven't been filed down or something. Maybe it was a bad pack that I bought. But anyway, I'm going to add one crimping bead onto my wire, and then I'm going to add another one. And there is no particular reason that I do this other than I want this to be nice and secure when it's hanging. So if the wind's blowing this around, I don't want to worry about this thing breaking on a client. If I did give this to somebody, I want it to last. So now that I have two crimping beads on here, I'm going to take my little pliers. I'm going to take this straight line, this little straight wire, and I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to go back through both of those crimping beads. So that it's got a little nubby right here, just sticking out ever so slightly. And I have my little loop, you know. It just depends on what you want to hang this off. This is plenty of space for me to put it on this little hanger that I got that fully rotates. So that's plenty of space. And now I'm going to take my crimping tool and I'm going to squish and clamp down on my little crimping beads here. So sometimes I gotta squeeze this just to get it to work right. Okay, so now I have both my crimping beads squished, closed, and I'm going to test it even so. I always test it just to make sure there's no give. Is going to be the top. This is where I'm going to suspend it from. So the first thing I want up here is an eye-catching bead, and I really like these flowers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to string some flowers on here. But first, I'm going to take a couple of beads. I think what I'll do is, this purple looks really pretty. So I'll start off with 3. And this is how you go through it quick. Whatever you do, use the small or medium beads. If you use these little tiny beads, I like them because they're Aurora Borealis, so they're eye-catching and very shiny, and they're cheaper than actual crystals. So I like to use these glass beads a lot to separate. And so I add usually a certain number of those at a time. I never do just one and then another and then one and another. No, I always use a combination of 3, 5, 7, 10, 12 in between. So right now I just spun 3 beads and I'm doing 5. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back around, and you see that little nubby that's kind of hanging out? I'm going to take those glass beads and see if I can finagle them around that and push into that. So now that little tail is gone, it's inside the glass beads and nobody's going to see it. And now I will add my pretty little flower. And this is what it looks like. You can't even see those beads on the side. And that's because this flower is so large that it just went right around those beads. So what I'm going to continue to do is do 5 more beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to see how far that goes into here. All right. So it sticks out about 2 beads, 3 beads actually. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a crystal, and I think what I'll do is I'll just use one of these clear crystals, and I like how that looks, but I want some white to surround it. So I think what I'll do is I'll just take one of these white beads and add that on there, then the crystal, one white bead, one crystal, and then one white bead again. And this is what I have. If you can see that. And now I'm going to go to my purple beads again, only I'm going to do much more than 5. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I did 9 of those pretty little bluish purple beads. And now I'm going to do a white bead, and now I'm going to add a blue crystal, and then a white bead again, and then 9 more of these purple beads. Drop those down, and then I'm going to do, you know what? I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do another flower. So I'm going to put a white crystal on, because if you remember, that white flower or that yellow flower went right over these purple beads. The hole was so big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a crystal down, and then 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to test the flower and see if the flower I add on here is, let's see here, let's do the orange flower. Let's see if the beads fit in that hole as well. We're going to test this out. Yep, they fit right in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start adding beads here until it fills that flower up. There we go. And now I'm going to add a white crystal, or not a white crystal, but a white bead. And then I'm going to do a white crystal again. These little tiny Aurora Borealis crystals, I really like those. And now 9 more beads. White crystal and then blue. You can see how quickly we're filling up. Add this green one on. All right, and this is where we figure out how much we have left. Okay, once you've beaded about just over 5 inches, you're going to want to check. So this is where you take your umbrella and you release it ever so gently from the glass. And this is what it'll look like. And this is where I'm going to bead 9 more. Okay, so now I'm at 6 inches. Okay, now I'm going to feed this through here and see just how much space I have. And I think that's a good amount of space to have between my umbrella and my Panda. So what I'm going to do now is my Panda is baking I wanted a top to my umbrella. This bead here, is going to be the top of my umbrella. If I can find where the hole went. Let's see how that looks. That's cute. All right. Yep. Perfect spacing now. All right. Now I want to put my beads off to the side so that I don't mess this up. Now that this is here, I'm going to lay this on the table and I'm not going to pick this up anymore because otherwise all my beads could come flying at me. So this is my halfway point now. Now I'm going to take a black bead and string it up here. And this is where your tube beads come in. Doing a black bead and a tube, Aurora Borealis white tube bead. And a black. Now I'm not sure yet if I want to do black and white or white and white. So I'm going to string this together and see what it looks like first. Because since I don't have black anywhere else on my work except for the panda, I want to make sure that it still is cohesive with the design. And these tube beads give the illusion of an umbrella handle. At least I thought they did. I think it's cute. Check the... Alright, this is exactly where I want to wait. And this is where I need my panda to see exactly if this height is what I need. I think I need to add one more bead. Okay, so since I can't finish this without first finishing my bear, this is done and all cooled off. And so are these pieces, which are gorgeous. So I'm going to put these off to the side over here, and I'm going to finish my bear. Now, first I'm going to cover this in some varnish, and that will protect my paint from getting rubbed off anywhere. You can use UV resin. If you have a UV light, I highly recommend this. This is the same place that you can get the panda bear and the umbrella cutter. But since I don't have my my UV light set up right now, I've actually got it in another spot, and it's not easily accessible right now, I'm going to go ahead and use this Pearl Ex Varnish. And you'll want to put this on in very thin coats. Now this does have a smell to it. I don't find it particularly overwhelming, so it doesn't bother me. And I'm just going to put this on very finely. Now I'm going to take my lighter and just go swiftly over the top, and this helps break any bubbles. And then I'm going to put this in front of a fan and let it dry for a few minutes. Okay, so while that panda is drying, I'm going to go ahead and start these two pieces right here. put this off to the side, and this. Now first, I want to figure out whether I want my orange to be this way, or whether I want to flip this around and have it hang like that. And I like that better, so I'm going to do this to this. So this piece right here, this eyelet, that's actually going to be connected up here at the top of this diamond. And this one that has the little ball on the end, this is going to be what hangs in the middle here. Little round beads right here that are rainbowy, or Aurora Borealis glass. So I think what I want to do is I want to use one blue, one of these, and then another blue, and I think I'm going to use this green flower. Here we go. And I'll just put one more on the end. And since I'm ending this a little shorter, that's totally fine. I'll just straighten this back out. And I'm going to have to cut about that much off. Twist that around. And before I close it, I'm going to hang this on the inside here, if I can do that. My pliers and just squeeze that to make sure that it's nice and shut. These are 6mm jump rings, and I'm going to take and open, just twisting it to the side, and I'm going to join this piece and this piece together. I'm just gonna take it and twist it to the side, back closed. And what I want to hang off of the bottom here are these little I call them raindrop beads, and I can't use these heavy 6-gauge not 6-gauge, but 6mm jump ring that I use to join this. I'm going to use regular 6mm jump rings. These are heavy gauge and these are regular. See, the holes on these beads are so small that they wouldn't be able to support heavy gauge findings. Okay, so now at this point, now that I have all my, I have 5 beads here, I'm going to start stringing them on some heavy gauge jump ring. So I'm having them kind of drip down. I want them to look like droplets. hang these on the very bottom. I think what I want to do is see how these would look. Yeah, that one's the best right there. I like that. Yeah, I'm not liking this heart here, so I'm going to change that up. And voila, I have all my beads ready to go. Now all I need is my panda. Okay, so now that the purple side is done, I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to varathane or put varnish on the pink side. Now there's one thing I did forget to do, and that was I forgot to put my little dots in the eyes of my panda. What I do is I take my white paint and I take a toothpick and I add just a dab for the eye and one more. And then I do the same thing to the other side. Just a tiny dab. And another one just below it. Just like that. And I'll do that over this side too, but I'll wait for this to dry first. And then I'll put one more coat on the top of this just to protect that. So now that this is dry, I'm going to go ahead and put a coat of protectant on here. Okay, so now Panda is got its covering to protect the paint. Now I just need to figure out exactly where or how long I want my umbrella to be, and then my panda will go at the bottom of that. And that's just a little bit too short, so I'm going to add a little bit more. So from umbrella to panda's hand is 2.5 inches. And you can make it shorter or longer, whatever you would like to do. Now I'm going to, well, first I need my crimping bead. So now I'm going to cut probably about, this is 2.5 inches off, that's all I need. I'm going to pull this off and put my crimping bead on because I know that's where I want it to stop. And then I'm going to feed it right through where my panda's hand is. And I'm going to feed this back into the crimping bead. And I want it to go through the black bead as well, just to hide that tail. And I'm going to feed it through as many tube beads as well as I can. And then I'm just going to pinch my bail and make sure that it is completely snug for our bottom of our panda. Just open that loop by bending it sideways, slide your panda on, close it up, and voila, you are all done. There's not another thing that you need to do but hang this up into the sun. Now if you have your swivel hook, now is the time to slide that on there. And I will hang it up.